Welcome, everyone, to another member highlight for Spirit Born Imaginings. And we're so excited to have Darlene here with us this morning to talk about her business. And she can share a little bit about that and sort of the process to how she actually got here in a minute or two. But we are just really excited, Darlene, to have you here. And we look forward to just having a conversation and learning a little bit more about it, about what you do and why you do it, I suppose. And we just, for all these people that might be out there listening, definitely you should connect with Darlene because she has a very beautiful spirit that would lovely to connect with. So, yeah, so Darlene, maybe just to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about because sometimes our journeys are not necessarily a straight forward road path, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's very it can take little twists and turns and be sort of a thing until we get to where we're at right now. And so just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got here.
Well,
Hmm.
before Darlene
Yes.
goes, I just want to say, are they ever straight lines or straight linear paths?
We
Because
like to think they are.
yeah, we like to think they are exactly, because I don't know that they ever are. Go ahead, Darlene.
I don't think I've ever experienced to be linear, and I think when it does end up going in the linear way, that's when it throws me off because I think this is too easy. Something's wrong here. This is too easy. Thank you for having me here. It is such a pleasure to share space with the both of you and to share a little bit about me. And I always find when I start to share about myself, you try and extrapolate the most important parts, the ones that you think, are worthy, not even worthy, but are worth sharing without going on a big diatribe. So I'm going to try and keep it succinct. So I bring out the most relevant points for everybody. But I think the place that I always love to start is just with my business name because my business name is Talk, Breathe, Live. And that in and of itself, the journey to get to that was not linear. It actually came about at a Montana's restaurant on those nice big sheets of brown paper that they give you to color and doodle. And my husband and I were going back and forth as to what name should I give it. And with the help of the waitress, we discovered this Talk, Breathe, Live. But it really does so encompass where my life has been, where my life has come to, and where I hope my life will be going. In that, those moments where you try to get through those traumatic events or those events that are taking you, sideswiping you, and just kind of really throwing you off your feet. Um, I don't even want to say unfortunately, but I have had many throughout my lifetime, and it's taken a long time to really kind of discover that all of those experiences and all of those instances that threw me off my path or that knocked me to the side or that made me feel doubt or insecurity, they're all there for a reason. And I would not be who I am today if not for those experiences. So I've about 12, 13 years ago, Talk, Breathe, Live was born. It came about and it percolated to the top because I thought, oh my gosh, who am I in this world and what can I give? I really felt like with all of the things I've been through in my life, I needed to give back to the community. I needed to give back to the world because I felt like I cannot have had all of these experiences for nothing. They can't just sit with me. They've got to reside somewhere else, and I've got to share the wisdom that I've had, knowing that everybody's path and journey and everybody's lines are different. But if even one little bit of what I've gone through and how I've managed to get myself out of those moments and through those moments could help somebody else, then oh my goodness, that is 150% where I'm at. So I started with the coaching business, like I said, a number of years ago. And through my advocacy in children's mental health, the coaching business was here, but the children's mental health side was here. And it kind of strayed me away from the talk, breathe, live side of things. And I worked in that field for a number of years, um, advocating. It similarly kind of fit with and meshed with what I was trying to do with Talk, Breathe, Live, but it just was so consuming because I was so passionate about the job and the community and what I was building. And I've always found myself to be, I think, a gatherer of people. I love connection. I love bringing people together. I often, as a child, would at to Christmas time and different times of the year where you all get together, I would go to a different part of the house and I would where I could still hear everybody, and I would just kind of close my eyes and just envelop myself in that feeling of, people laughing and people having conversations. And I didn't even realize it, but I guess through that passion, I started doing that through the work that I was doing both with Talk, Breathe, Live and both within the mental health field and bringing community together. And I thought, I love this. This brings so much joy to my heart. And to be able to bring people together in a forum where they can start to have those organic conversations and they can start to connect with other people that really align with what, they need and want and are looking for. Oh my goodness. This is a beautiful world. We're cultivating here a beautiful world where so much magic can happen. And we moved. Well, I've only moved twice. Fun fact: I've only moved twice in my lifetime, and I don't really want to move again anytime soon because those were part of my traumatic events. But that, moving from one place to the other, we moved from Milton to London, and all of a sudden I found myself here and kind of reinventing my wheel. And I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here? Where do I belong? Where do I fit? So my journey at the very beginning here really kind of led me down. I'd done the coaching thing kind of on the side, was in that mental health world, children's mental health world. And then when I got here, I kind of decided, you know what? I think I need to shift a little bit because I realized that I was still holding a lot of trauma. I was still doing a lot of my own inner work. And I thought, I think I need to broach kind of out of that world of the chaos of children's mental health and really focus on myself, my growth, and my business, because I 150% that idea of talking, right? We talk, we have these wonderful connections, we communicate with others, we grow, we learn, we expand, but we also have to have that breath. And without that breath, there is no conversation because there's no breath to have that conversation. And then to live right after we talk and we breathe, let's live our beautiful radiant selves, fully aligned, fully in touch with who and where we want to be and go. And when I was many, many moons ago, I had written a journal entry about an experience with my daughter and I. So sorry, backtrack. In 2012, I wrote a kid's book about anxiety because I was seeing things and I was hearing things and I thought, I got to help the world figure out that, a child that's crying is not crying because they don't want to be there. They need that support. So I wrote a kid's book in 2012, which kind of, prompted that going into that advocacy world of mental health, children's mental health. And then in amongst all those years, I ended up writing a journal entry about an event that happened with my daughter and I that was a very big learning opportunity for me about, how do I share with this child that they can grow to do and be anything they want to be? And it all came about by some beans. So that journal entry kind of prompted conversation throughout the groups that I used to hold in Halton and the programs we used to do. And over again, people used to say, you need this message and magic of thriving and growing and exploring your self-discovery needs to be a children's book. So in amongst that whole shift when we got here, I thought, it happened, the journal entry happened to pop out of one of my boxes, and I thought, oh, well, maybe it's the right time. So I
Mm.
really began that first couple months being here. It was really a wonderful, at the time, didn't feel like wonderful, but it felt a little, many other words other than wonderful, very colorful words as well too. When you're in that moment of discovering who you are and, kind of sitting at the desk going, okay, why am I, what do I want to do when I grow up, right? Um, and that journal entry became that prompt to really reignite Talk, Breathe, Live as as a fully aligned business. And this is the service that I wanted to bring out to folks. And then with the help of my daughter, she illustrated the book, and the Bean Story just came out last May, and it has been just that next catalyst to remind me that I too, I've had some I call them bean story moments, because they seem to be little moments in time where either you self-doubt or you do something and somebody else acknowledges that you've done something, and everybody has the bean story moments.
Mm.
And it just is so synergistically worked with the mindfulness practices that I've incorporated into my coaching. I'm working on breathwork certification and breathwork therapy right now as well too. So all of these different modalities that work so well in realigning to really bring Talk, Breathe, Live into a forum that I've never been anywhere with it. And I just keep exploring. I keep connecting with more people, and it's just been such a pleasure that, again, all those life experiences, right? All that minutia, all the junk that happens, that when you're in the moment you think there's no rhyme or reason for it, but lo and behold, right, like that lotus, when you start to blossom and bloom, you realize, wow, there actually is a lot here, and there is a lot for me to give and share with the world. And it's just magical, right?
That's
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's so amazing. And I love that you were able to bring that idea that you journal about into a book, into fruition, and the fact that your daughter was in a space and time that she was able to help you by illustrating that for you. And that in itself is is a journey, I know. And and I just have to say, to related to that book, as I was sharing with you last week actually, that I gave a copy of your book to my little 7-year-old niece, and she was just so enraptured reading this book, and it just made me smile and made me feel so happy that I'd given it to her. She loves to read anyways, but she really was enjoying the book thoroughly. She was just like so intensely into reading it. So I just loved that, and that just made me feel really happy because I knew that it had an important message, because shh, I read it before I gave it to her. But
Okay,
it's
that's
Well, Mary Jane and I were having this conversation in because we were thinking, I think it's not even, it will happen. It just hasn't happened yet.
yes.
Of having a book club and meeting with people. And I said to her, I would love to do children's books because I think children's books have such wisdom in them. And everybody, we say they're for children, but so many of them are so relatable and so just poignant, and their messages are great. And so I said, I think we should include children's books. So I love children's books. And I think that there really are some children's books, which I just think, I think one of my favorite books of all time is The Velveteen Rabbit. It's probably on my, top books of any era, any sort of like any age, any era. So I think that there is great wisdom. And one of the things you said, and I think it's only gotten worse, and I was in conversation with someone yesterday, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this, is our youth, our children, or young people, because I think the anxiety level is far beyond anything we can imagine. These days, I don't think it's any, I think it's in general really high amongst the general population. At least here in the US. That's what I see.
Mhm.
And I think that, children are, they've grown up in kids now have grown up in a very unique kind of environment and
Mhm.
exposure to whatever you want to say, lack of nature, technology, like a combination of, of a whole myriad of things. And I feel like anything we can do to support kids at all. I
Mhm.
I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound cliche, but they are our future. So,
Yeah, it's so true, and that's with the story and the message behind the book is it really stems from the I want all children to know that they have everything within them to thrive and to do things and to be whatever their hearts are aligned to, and know that there's that support there. And so one of the pages in the book is like all the, like if you can imagine a planter box with all kinds of rocks and weeds and just, an environment that you think there is no way anything is going to grow. And that's exactly what happened. My daughter, brought the bean plant home and said, "We're going to plant it here." And I thought, "Kid, that's not going to work." And usually it's the opposite. I was usually the one that was like, all optimistic, and tables were turned this time. There's so many, to your point, Jan, there's so many pieces of the puzzle, right? I don't think it's just one thing for our kids these days. It's that social media. It's the weight of the world on the parents weighs on the children too, right? Both parents being out to work, potentially multiple jobs. Then there's nobody home for those kids to be able to, those big feelings come along. Who do they get to talk to? There's nobody there, or there's people there that, just don't have the capacity. Or even if there are adults there, let's face it, there's a lot of adults that are dealing with a lot of trauma right now too. I was just just the other day, I had heard that, chances are there's nobody that is without trauma in this world right now, right? In different varying degrees of it. So the message and the magic there is just that I want all kids to be able to know that they got it. They've got that I call them little beans. They are those little beans. You've got this. That's the part of the tagline too. And then at the end of the book, there's a bit of an activity, and I've got an activity book as well too that's completely separate. But that also came from, yes, I wanted the story to be shared, but I also wanted something for them to connect to, for them to understand and realize that I can tell you that you are amazing, but you're not really going to believe it unless you know in your heart of hearts and soul that you are. So what can we do? What can I provide for these kids? So it's called the Garden of Self-Discovery, that allows you to kind of explore, what are those things that make me smile? What are those things that make my heart sing? What are those things that I find myself, continually moving towards and gathering towards? And I think part of that also came from the conversations I've had just in my world where, kids are struggling with the fact that they don't know there's so much pressure on them to, by a certain age, you got to know what you want to be, you got to know what you want to go to school for, you got to know your path. And the reality is, my gosh, that can change 50 million times, but if you don't have an opportunity to explore, how are you going to know what you want to do, or what path you want to go down, right? So let's allow them that time and that opportunity at a younger age to be able to explore that, and then maybe and be comfortable in that exploration. And just something else you said, it's funny with both the first book and this book, that is exact. I've heard that from adults, from many adults, that one parent said, "So my son wants me to read the book every night. He reads, I read it to him, but then I take it back into my room because I read it for myself to be able to, realign and re-regulate myself." And that is the biggest compliment I think I could ever have. That and that's was my hope too. So it's not just for little beans, but big beans as well too. Because yeah, there's it. This, I think sometimes that's the thing, right? We get so cons consumed, constricted by all this other stuff, that sometimes the simplest of messages have the biggest weight, because you hear them right through the cloud of everything else. You're able to hear them.
I mean, I do love the fact that, like you said, like this, mother went in and read it for herself. Because like I said, I love children's books. And I've read children's books to my yoga students in class during Shavasana, because I just think that some of them, they're just such great, great messages. And like you said, they're simple. And the stories are usually sweet and relatable. And so because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the guy said, well, at one point or another, we're all children, because if we're here, we've been a child. So we can kind of relate to those circumstances of being a kid.
Mhm.
And I do love the fact of what you shared about what children are going through now, because I agree. I mean, I think we all agree. I think that there is no one there to talk to. There's no one there necessarily to give them, that they can, they can share with. And so they end up spending a lot of time, you know, online or whatever. And, who knows, then you have no control over the answers they get and basically what they're being fed through, through
Yes.
messaging on social media or whatever. And that can lead to a myriad of, you know, beliefs, let's just say that, good and bad. And so I love that, and I love the idea of an activity book
Yeah.
Mhm.
and getting it to be like practical, because I think it's one thing to read it and it's another thing to do it and to experience it.
Mhm.
So I love that idea because I think that that's such a powerful, powerful gift to people. It's like I was talking to somebody about doing, like you said, you're doing a training. I've done so many trainings and workshops through the years. If you're in any of our fields or like sort of self-development, everybody does a lot. And
Exactly.
all of a sudden, I remember waking up and doing this amazing workshop, and then my life didn't change. And then all of a sudden, like the light bulb went off. It was like, oh, I have to implement it. Like, it's like you go and you're like, okay, and everything is like, I'm gonna just be changed by osmosis. I'm not, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I've got to do the work, and that's, you okay, I am sorry. I just,
Okay.
woo.
Yeah,
Like,
doesn't just magically happen, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and getting it to be like hands-on almost. I love that.
Exactly. It actually started the irony of it. It started off as a coloring book because right now coloring books are, create a coloring book. And I tried to, but it just wasn't, I felt like it just wasn't enough. It just didn't do it justice with the message and all the different bits and pieces. And I thought, oh, there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be, I don't know. So I have one of the activities is a tic-tac-toe where you can create your own, um, you create your own little tic-tac-toe pawn or I guess whatever little, your X or your O, you create it so that, whatever's on it is something that you resonate with, right? And we all know that when we're engaged and really interested in something, it's going to stick, right? A lot better than if you're doing it because somebody else told you to do it or the investment there is much more practical and we take it in as well too, right? So, and then the creativity is there, right?
Mm.
That creativity is such a big piece too, right? But I'm Zen. Many years ago, I did Zen Tangle training down in Rhode Island. It was wonderful, and that too, right? The art of it's not doodling, but it's rhythmically continuing certain lines but bringing out that creativity. You don't have to be an artist, and it doesn't have to be perfect either, right? I think that's the big thing. Just try it, just do it, just give it a twirl and see how it goes. So lots of opportunities in there as well too. And again, cultivating that whole idea that we're growing, right? We're growing, we're always shifting, we're always learning something. So experientially, it's beautiful to try, right? And if it's not your thing, then you move on to something else, right?
Yeah.
No harm, no foul, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so true. And you're definitely speaking our language, Jan and my language, because that's one of the key components of the workshops that we do is bringing um people to hopefully some learning and then some engagement and reconnecting with their creativity in some way in the various activities that we do. So it's just like that for me is a key component of what makes me who I am, is just like learning, helping people to relearn, because it's like we've
Mhm.
forgotten. And I like this idea of the children's books and creativity. It's just like reconnecting to that inner child, the little child, whatever you want to hold, that's inside, that's still there,
Yeah.
still living there, that maybe we've kind of squashed that voice, or other people may have squashed that voice, but reconnecting to that place when we weren't afraid to try things. Like you were saying about your daughter planting, thinking, well, that's not going to work. But sure enough, what happened? It grew, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, but reconnecting to that space where we're not afraid to try those things, because usually as children, until somebody either says to us, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," or whatever the case may be, and then it's like over time that builds ahead to the point where it's like we become adults, and then we kind of forget that we should be reconnecting to that, because that's where the not just creativity and thing, but creative thought in general comes from. So, especially us as entrepreneurs, that's something that we really need to connect to, because it helps us to think outside of the box, and it's okay to color outside the lines, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
One of the things you both,
Encouraged, right?
yes,
right, and yeah, and one of the things you both kind of shared, um, directly or indirectly, was this idea of, I think depending on how we grow up, we have this fear, especially of adults, of failure. Like we
Mhm.
Mhm.
don't want to fail at something. And when I was having this discussion with someone the other day, and it was this whole idea of, I was saying that definitely was my household. Like you did not want to, like, and they were commenting that they grew up like failure was fine. Like it was like, okay, you failed. Like, what did you learn from it? Let's move on to the next. And I think when you have that, a whole idea of it's really about the exploration and the
Mhm.
discovery versus like it, to try something and realize that that doesn't really work for me, or that I don't really like doing that, or that didn't work out, that's okay. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that this whole idea of perfectionism or doing everything perfectly, which when you're
that
creative,
exists.
like that exists, right, but
Does
we
it?
think it exists. We think, and we live a world where we try to be perfect, and
Mhm.
um and then you realize that you know perfectionism well, first of all, it's boring, it's impossible to keep to that standard and to kind of maintain that, right? I mean, I'll speak from experience.
Exactly.
Yes, I
Not
can
me at
relate.
all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and this whole idea of is I love to be able to, from your work, it sounds like that, to give people that gift to realize, oh, okay, well, you know, and it's not really like failure. It's just like that's a really harsh word to me.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it also denotes like school failure to me, failed subject kind of thing. It has a very, I have to think of another word, but
Wait,
right, right now,
well,
that
as Darlene and I know, there's a great mentor that we have, the key phrase that she always uses is it's winning and learning, not winning and losing.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Because even in those moments, right, where you look back and think, "Oh man, that was a bust," that was not the way I had intended, but you're still learning something. And I know it's very difficult though, right, for us to in the moment. Sometimes it's really difficult to remember that, and remember that you are not you are not your failures. You don't fail as a person. I often say to people, right, just because you did something that maybe went along the wayside, not quite the way you wanted it to, doesn't mean that you as a person are a failure. you are just learning from what, from what you've just experienced. And one of the things that funny, last year, all of last year, and a bit into the year before, I adopted this. All of a sudden, it came out of an experience that I had, and all of a sudden, I found myself starting to really question. So instead of being reactive to something, and I think it was one day I was triggered by something. Something really triggered me, like deeply triggered me, where I just felt it in, like from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. And I was angry, really, really angry. And I thought, huh, that's really curious. I wonder where that's coming from. Because this is a really overreaction to whatever just happened. And, I had a moment to pause and took some time to think about it. And then the next time, I didn't really think anything of it. The next time something happened, I again, that's curious. And it was funny. Found myself audibly saying the word, And it almost began to feel like the was a bit of a re-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Gave myself an opportunity to pause in that moment to
Yes.
say, that's really curious. Okay, where is this coming from? And I actually did a post about it, I think last year, around September of last year, because same thing, something triggered me and I thought, why is this bugging me so much? There's got to be something else going on here because it's not something that should be. And I had to go for a walk because I couldn't sit at my desk. I just had too much energy, and I went for a walk and walked out the door with my headphones on and thought, that's curious. Okay, and my whole walk, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's triggering me? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling? And then all of a sudden on my walk, I was like, yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I discovered it. So that has sort of become my friends joke with me now. And actually, one of my coaching clients said, you need to make that into a t-shirt because now she's starting to say, that's curious. Why am I feeling like that? Right. But again, that idea that we are allowed to explore, right? We're allowed to question, to ponder, to pause,
Yes.
right? In that moment. And it's so beneficial all the way around. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. And I love that idea of I'm always like, that's really interesting when I have a reaction. It's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. It's like,
It's the same reaction. Okay, so now we can have a series of t-shirts.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's curious. Miriam, what's yours?
I don't know. I'll just have to let that that idea percolate in my head, I think.
no,
Probably already there. You just haven't paid attention to it yet.
Yes, exactly. So now that the two of you are saying that, I'm like, I was about to say, there you go.
no, but it
Well,
really
that's
is.
it.
Yeah, when you start to look at it and you realize that, okay, this is a really interesting reaction, or this is a like curious reaction that I'm having about this. And you realize that it's not about that actual circumstance. Like there's really nothing, something about it is similar or familiar, but it's not really that situation. That the situation happened probably years ago, and that still is whatever there, or that behavior is still there, that feeling. And so you're like, oh,
That's interesting.
that's interesting. I think I get that from my old acupuncturist, would kind of ask me to delve into things. So she was so funny. And then I would say something, but I would say it with my head, like, because I'm so analytical. And she would say, that's not it. I used to, because I'd worked so hard at it. I'd be like, she'd say, like, well, that was a really interesting reaction. What's that about? And I'm thinking about it or whatever. And I'd say something and she'd say, that's not it. And I used to get so frustrated. And then she would say, that's really interesting. Like so I think that's where it came from, was from her, Kathy, lovely Kathy. But yeah, I think we all have those things, but the gift, right, that you're offering people is that opportunity to be able to start to look at that, because that's where the power is, because that's where change is, and I think one of the most interesting things I've learned of late, or I'm trying to incorporate, is it's not like you might still have the reaction, like that initial sort of response or feeling might be there, but the
Mhm.
fact that you don't carry it through or you don't give it much, like it's there, you kind of let it be, and you don't go down like you don't, I want to say, you don't go down the rabbit hole
Down the
exactly.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's like you don't go down deep into the tunnel. And
Exactly.
because I think it's a lot to ask of us sometimes not to have those reactions.
Mhm.
Sometimes we've been having them,
Mhm.
from the time we were children.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think and for me, it was that conscious shift of, I want to observe this. I, I don't want to go into it. I don't want to follow through with whatever feeling that I want to observe it. And by being able to observe it, then I don't hold so much of it, right? And it doesn't feel as heavy. And so when when that anger reaction came around, it was like, that's curious. Okay, I think I gotta go for a walk. I gotta figure out, because I want to figure out what this is, but I don't want to lay any judgment to it either. I just want to observe it for what it is,
Mhm.
to discover what that is without, because if I put judgment to it, then I'm going to start to say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this, or I shouldn't be feeling so angry, where the reality is I felt whatever I felt. It happened. I can't take that away, but I can step back from it and be an observer of it to try and see, okay, is this really everything that my brain is telling me that it is? Or is it, just that gut reaction? And to your point, Jen, it's so embedded and ingrained in my reaction for so long, that is this real or is it not? Right? Is it, yeah.
And then it also reminds me that it doesn't become all consuming. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't get so overwhelming and it's so all consuming that nothing else seems to, like, you can't focus or be anything else but that experience or that feeling. And
Yeah.
so I love the idea that you talk about giving it a little bit of space or perspective around it, because that's really, because then it becomes so all consuming. There's
Yeah.
no, it's actually, there's like almost no space to dig yourself out. It- you
Exactly.
know,
It's like putting those lenses on, right? You just can't see anything, where you can if you, yeah. And that breath, right? I think that's the other piece too, right? It allows you that breath, because when you're in those moments, well, I'm sure as a yoga teacher, right? You're breathing, and then I know when I first discovered, through my wonderful chiropractor, I was having a moment where I couldn't breathe, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack. I can't breathe. And I had reached out to her earlier, and she messaged me, and we ended up on a call, and she said, how are you breathing? And it was a great opportunity to discover that I was actually I thought I was breathing. I was holding my breath. So in that, for me anyway, that's an opportunity to, oh yeah, okay, I breathe. Because I tend to hold it, right? Whereas some people breathe real fast. I hold it, and I don't even realize sometimes that I'm holding it, right?
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's so amazing, and it really speaks to the whole mission behind your both your story and your business, that you're creating the Talk, Breathe, Live. I
Yeah.
mean, that's you really just summed it up there as, like, talking about it as we've been talking about it here, taking that time, as you were saying, to breathe, and just to go, you went for a walk to clear the thing, and to come back and really feel that you can live your best life, or at least move forward and understand where you're coming from, and how to sort of move forward, and sort of acknowledging it, that's key. And I really this conversation has been awesome and lovely, and really deep, and definitely I feel when Jan does come to visit us here, I definitely think that we should definitely meet, all three of us together, because I think we can create some magic together
Uh,
for sure. But Darlene,
absolutely.
yeah, what do you think? I'm pretty sure. Like, I see Jan nodding her head, so I'm guessing it's not like, I'm putting it out there. Hi, universe, I'm putting it
Yeah.
out there.
I second that motion.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds like it would be amazing
Yes,
to do.
exactly. Be lovely to bring bring as many people of our little community that we're all building together, because it's not just Jen and me building it. It's all of the members that are building this community together, and it'd be lovely to do something like that. I think to have something where we did something in person together. I think that would be amazing. And Darlene, if people want to reach out to you, connect with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Talk Breathe Live 2008 2018. So Talk Breathe Live 2018. My website, talkbreathelive.com, and on Facebook as well, Talk Breathe Live. And I've got a couple different groups and things as well too. So yeah, any of the usual, social media platforms. That's where I'm at.
Well, we'll definitely drop some of those details into the description of this conversation today. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's just I feel like I feel energized. I feel like really lively now. I guess that's a good thing, right?
It's what happens when you're in connection with, other folks that really align, right, with you. And it's been tremendous. I can't thank you too enough. It's been wonderful to just share. And, every time you share a little bit more about yourself, I think you learn about yourself as well too.
Yes,
Mm,
Right?
for sure.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for creating such a safe space. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody out there.